one of the most utopian creative artists in Palestine at the moment is Larissa Sansur with her piece, Nation, State. And here's a form of utopia that not only operates from a conjoining of past, present and future, but in doing so avoids the conception of utopia as an ahistorical abstraction that is either hopelessly impractical or dangerously idealistic or both, a position argued most forcefully by Marx and Engels in the Communist Manifesto. This is Palestinian artist Larissa Sansur's photo project called Nation State, first introduced as another of Fritz Krauss's postcard. Let's have a look at that postcard again. This is the original 1936 postcard. This is Amir Shamali's visit Palestine with the wall, and this is Larissa Sansur's Nation Estate, playing on a piece use of the term estate for tower block housing. Sansur depicts a virtual Palestinian homeland in the form of a skyscraper, dwarfing the real Palestine outside. And just by the way, this project stirred controversy when, after being shortlisted for the prestigious Musée d'Orsay Art Prize in Switzerland, the major sponsor Lacoste requested that the works be removed from the competition for being too pro-Palestinian. After the ensuing international scandal, the museum cancelled the prize and broke the partnership. The artist explains that with brutal Israeli settlement, expansion in Israel and the peace process in tatters, it seems quite straightforward that any final border agreement will leave Palestinians with hardly any land for a state. The idea of nation estate is that should any future Palestinian state hope to house the entire population, one would have to think vertically, and hence the idea of a single skyscraper with whole cities on each floor came about. As the piece looks now, it's a photo project revealing everyday situations from this building. The nation state reduced to a building simply became the nation estate, a single block of forced migrants. Its subtitle, Living the High Life, expands on the irony. Now, this, as we said, this stirred controversy when Lacoste withdrew its sponsorship. But interestingly, the fact that the museum cancelled the sponsorship and stuck by their guns with the Sansur demonstrates something very interesting about the power of creative representation. Because this is not overtly resistant or political, but what it is offering is a sense of a future that can stimulate people's imaginations. Since we had a cartoon about it, I won't go through that, a cartoon about the whole controversy. But crucially, from our perspective, nation state plays on the idea of place that remains critical to any colonised perception of the future. But it is a conception of place that operates in a layered conception of time, in which past, present and future conjoin as the essential feature of revolutionary hope. Her reworking of the Fritz Krauss postcard displays what Edouard Glissant calls a prophetic vision of the past. In doing this, Sansur's Utopian avoids the trap of transcendental abstraction or hopeless impracticality that might come from being quarantined in the future. Now, Lawrence Davis says of grounded utopias that part and parcel of dynamic and open-ended processes of struggle and grounded in immediate everyday needs, such utopias challenge dominant conceptions of reality, not by measuring them against the transcendental ethical standard of a fixed vision of an ideal society, but by opening a utopian space for thinking, feeling, debating, and cultivating the possibility of historically rooted and thus historically contingent alternative social relations. I would contend that although whimsical, Larissa Sansor's utopia is such an integral feature of the Palestinian world, representing the hopes and dreams of those consigned to its margins, grounded in the reality of erosion of Palestine as a place. Whether in the lobby, where you see each floor indicating a city, floor 2 Sud, floor 3 Jerusalem, Ramallah and Bethlehem. Or whether watering an olive tree or whether getting out of the lift at level 3 at Jerusalem, nation state is a grounded utopia because it's the utopia of a single state. Ironically, the impossibility of a single state becomes more possible with Israeli settlement. When there is no land left for Palestinians, there will be no option but to incorporate Palestinians into a single state. Sansor's urban utopia, the vertical state, is the metaphor for a different but possible way of inhabiting Palestine. We can test the grounded nature of nation or state by comparing it to another of Sansor's pieces, the short film called Space Exodus, which shows a Palestinian female astronaut planting a Palestinian flag on the moon. This is not grounded in the way that nation state is grounded in the reality of Palestinian dispossession and renewal of the past. Yet neither is it utopia. Space Exodus is a representation of what appears to be the impossible, but it demonstrates precisely how the utopianism of art and literature work. By the very act of representing the impossible, the work clears the space for the imagination. And while not everything that is imagined is possible, Space Exodus reminds us that nothing is achieved that is not first imagined. The creative works we see here are not involved in revolution in the way we normally expect revolution to occur, or in the way, for instance, Kanafani sees resistance literature operating, but they are revolutionary in the capacity to collapse time, to fuse past, present and future into an image that spirals into the future. There are different forms of revolution, but all must reject the stereotype of victimhood. These works are revolutionary in their disruption of stereotype, their rejection of fear, and their undercutting of expectation. Ultimately, they demonstrate the utopian power of art and literature because they affirm that a different world is possible. And this is the truth that creative works affirm. And I will finish with this statement repeated. No future is achieved unless it is first imagined. Thank you very much.
Professor Ashcroft, thank you very much for this rich talk. One of the concepts, it's very rich because you have incorporated so many concepts there. One of the concepts that I particularly find interesting and enticing in a way is your rewriting of the concept of revolution as both a revolt and revolt.
Yeah.
Basically, you build this on the concept of language. Okay, you derive it from language. And I suppose, as far as I understood it, you supplemented with your own concept of time. both of which are aspiring in terms of revolving, both are aspiring in their movement, and hence we can understand this by relating it to time as well. However, perhaps I'm looking for hope. Okay. Can you think of a concrete example of a revolution that has incorporated both movements of revolt and revolting? Or is it a thought that is to be implemented in the future? And how far can, on the ground, these two movements of revolution coexist?
Okay, thanks for the question.
Thank you.
I would say in some respects all revolution have an element of revolt and revolving. I would say look at the Arab Spring. I would say there's an element of revolt, but the revolving is also a spiralling into the future. And that spiralling into the future is led by, I would say, by the imagination. The imagination is the province of creative spirit. And so creativity has a very important place to play. But the point I want to make is that no revolution is signed, sealed and delivered, complete, finished, over. Okay? And if we understand that revolution means revolving as well, then hope will not be disappointed. We will understand that there is more, and that the utopianism by which we live, according to Islam, will see that future embedded in the present, in the past. It's what Lisson called a prophetic vision of the past, the prophetic vision of the past that sees it projected in the future. So there's two concepts that I bringing together: the idea of revolution as revolt and revolving, but also the idea of time as layered. So that the past is not cut off, but a future stems out of the past, and the future is embedded in the present. And this is a concept that comes from the fact that time is not abstract. Time is something we live, and this is the way we live.
Good afternoon. My name is Rana Kuik. I'm a professor of English at the University of Cleveland, South Palestine. I would like first to thank you very much for this inspiring and insightful presentation, for making all these references to our well-known writers, the Palestinian writers. And I was wondering about the relationship that you established between past, present, and future. I thought it was very interesting, and how this relationship could lead to change also. And I was wondering if in your writings you have also focused on the issue of memory in the Palestinian context, because the past is constantly being changed by the occupier, especially inside historical Palestine, the 1948 area. And this is a theme that Mahmoud Darwish has dwelt upon largely, and considered memory to be one way of preserving the past when you cannot preserve it in materialistic ways. Thank you very much.
Yes, that's a very good question. One of the ways in which dominance operates, of course, is by rewriting history. And the ways in which post-colonial societies have resisted this and transformed it is by representing their history in literature and in other creative works. Memory is that which escapes history. Memory is that which resists it and can never be oppressed by the official capital H history of in my field, of course, of the colonial powers. We see the way in which this is operating, of course, in present-day Palestine. And so I would say that memory needs to go a step further. Memory needs to go a step into the power of self-representation. It's not enough to throw rockets across a border. The real fight is in the minds of people who vote the politicians in power. And that must occur by transformation of that memory, not as only as a resistance to history, but as a reshaping of the representation of those who are dominated.
Excuse me. Humanitarian linguistics. Sorry, at Albania University. Now I'm really thankful for the idea that you have presented about the ontology of time and the meshing up of the borders between the present and past and the future in the time of the revolutions. But the point is, as much and many as the numerous that I have seen regarding the revolutions which existed through literature, post-colonial literature, through the Palestinian literature, the point here which I'm asking about is here in the Arab Spring revolutions, we are rather, it is, let's say that I'm not considering it a revolution against an oppressive. Against an oppressing foreign entity or against an unwelcomed, hated being. It is rather a revolution against, let's say, a regime, a person. So don't you think with me that at the time of the revolution, at the time when there was a measuring up of the borders between present, past, and future, the idea of the frankness of the utopian, the possibility of achieving an abstract utopian, was coincident with the ontology of time, because we at that time did not believe in the possibility. And the possibility of the existence of the utopian, we will not be able to do that measuring up of time and having the stimulus to have the force to create so much literature at a very brief time that expresses that idea, the possibility of that existence. And if so, according to what I've been listening to and really appreciate, do what we are doing now in Egypt, Tunisia, Syria, and even in Yemen is considered a grounded utopia, because at the end we are already moving towards a better state of utopia, which is different from what had resulted from the Arab Spring or the first initial stages of the Arab Spring.
Okay, so
yes.
The question
is, now according to the concept of utopia and to time, okay, all Arabic utopias, Arab Spring, moving on towards better future, towards achieving a grounded utopia as presented in the form of the Palestinian revolution, or it has just finished? Because at the end, which I have here, you are also promising us a better future.
Okay. All right. Now, in general, the question is asking what, with the Arab Spring, with the various kinds of revolutions going on, is this a move for the better? And, it's always a move for the better, but it's not always a move to perfection. And we should avoid thinking that that would be the case for revolution. As I said before, any revolution is not the end of things. It's something that continues to spiral into the future. Now, a revolution that produces drastic change is something that sparks a spiralling movement. My point is that the power of the creative spirit in this process is second to none, not just in literature but in art, because it imagines a different world as possible. Now, whether that world is obtained, it usually isn't obtained in any particular revolution, but it's always there, glimmering as an object of hope for us to be striven for. Now, it may not need to be striven for in violent ways, but it is something that lies there as a prophetic vision of the present and the past. And that's the future, I think, that the anticipatory illumination that the literature and art give us.
Dr. Hannah Kamal?
Hannah Kamal, Cairo University. I'm going back to the idea that was raised by Dr. Sahar and the points about revolution, combining revolt with revolvement. And actually, your discussion of this combination brought to my mind one of the key concepts that are prevalent in the streets of Cairo, namely the ongoing revolution, that the revolution continues, and the idea in many ways also connects to the Trotskyite notion of the continued revolution. And this triggered my thinking, and I'm therefore asking you a concrete question. Revolt seems to be connected to the present. Revolvement seems to connect us more to the future. Do you consider the concept revolution and the act revolution as grounded more in the present, or as governed, directed by this utopian future?
Well, that's an interesting question. Do I see revolution as grounded in the present or directed by the future? I would say that, in fact, the revolving that I'm talking about suggests that past, present, and future are layered, and that the continuation of revolution is definitely a sense of that a different future is possible. And I'm very interested to hear your comment about the ongoing revolution, because it does seem to suggest, to confirm to me the idea that revolutions are not something that just happen and stop, that they need to revolve, they need to spiral into the future. And in that way, as Loubna says, hope cannot be disappointed. Ernst Bloch suggested that hope can be disappointment, but with every disappointment, nevertheless, there is more hope for the future. So I would say that in the revolving of a revolution, there's not just a sense of the future, but a sense of the possibility of the future that's embedded in the present. Embedded in the present as a result of the past. In this case, a sort of past of just a couple of years. But I think that sense of the revolving and spiraling nature of hope is incredibly important in the continuation of revolution.